Another week, another episode of Watchmen. And this is the one that so far I've been waiting for the most because we get the introduction of Laurie Blake, played by Jean Smart. Now, I'm a big Jean Smart fan, have been ever since Designing Women. So it's good to see her still acting, and it's really interesting to see her take on the character. What I enjoyed about this was that she is so bitter and so cynical and a perfect Laurie in the later stages of her life. One who still works for the FBI on the anti-vigilante task force, and one who quite frankly doesn't give a crap about much. But in that not giving a crap, we get a good solid look at her. And we get to read between the lines in a way that I just really enjoyed. The episode itself is very light on action outside of a scene I'm going to talk about here in a little bit, but it was a good character episode, especially in regards to Laurie Blake, to getting to know that story, to getting to know that character. And I don't know how much of the show she's going to be in. I'm hoping it's a lot more. I know Regina King is the main star, and she was definitely pushed to the back for this episode, but I don't know. I don't want Jean Smart to like not be around. I don't want her to not be in like every scene with Regina King because they have adversarial chemistry that I like quite a bit. And again, I will talk about that. So the episode is still dealing with the aftermath of Judd after he's been hung. Of course, not a lot of nothing from Sister Night from Angela Abar over the fact that Will had someone show up with a giant magnet and take her car out of the night sky, out of the parking lot and deep into the night sky. No reference to that whatsoever because this takes place roughly the day after that, I believe. So we get a bit of a flashback for Laurie. We go back to the FBI where we get to see that she actually takes down she takes down the vigilantes, and I love this. They set up a bank heist in order to lure out, I believe, a guy called Mr. Shadow, bit of a Batman knockoff. And she basically confronts him on it. The guy tries to run, and then she shoots him in the back. And this cop asks her, like, "Hey, how did you know that his body armor was bulletproof?" And of course, she didn't respond because she didn't care one way or the other. Had she killed him, which I assume she has killed other masked vigilantes before, means very little to her. Nothing really means anything to her. She's very apathetic. She's very cynical. Life has clearly dealt her some poor cards, even though she finds herself in a successful job doing what she does. She's still dealing with the secret, harboring the secret. And she really only has one person left to talk to out of the four remaining heroes that walked away from the ending of the graphic novel. And that, of course, is Dr. Manhattan. Now, we did get a little bit of info on Night Owl through a visit with Senator Keene Jr. Now, Keene Jr. says that because his goal is ultimately to become president, which makes sense, right? That he wants to oust Robert Redford, and he wants to use this situation with the cavalry. I'm trying to say that right because I always say it wrong and people like to let me know that. But he's trying to use this as a way to run against Redford, I think. So look, I'm calling it now. He's involved with the cavalry. Like he's clearly involved in that. He's working with them in order to cause enough chaos and terror to take his pilot program nationwide. Because when we learned about White Knight from the last episode, where the 7th Cavalry came in and gunned down all those cops, killed all those people, and then of course family members, other cops quit and they couldn't hire anyone, Keene Jr. amended his own father's Keene Act to allow masked officers and even vigilantes in the police force, provided there was the guns being locked up. And as he says, he's like, crime is down 80% in Tulsa. So he's viewing it as a win. And he's like, other cities like Denver and Atlanta want to bring on this pilot program and use it for their officers as well. So right now, Tulsa is kind of ground zero for Keene's master plan. So to me, it says that down the road, we're going to find out that he clearly is involved in this as a way to make sure that he can then become elected president by causing enough chaos, and then also having the solution to causing the chaos, right? Very similar to what Veidt did back in the original comic, and so that's cool too. It's a bit of the comparison, right? A bit of cyclical events, which I find to be fascinating in these types of reboots or reimaginings or remixings and so on and so forth. So essentially speaking, he comes in and he says, look, when I'm president, I can maybe let your owl out of, I can do things. I can give your owl a pardon, which says to me that Night Owl is alive and that he's incarcerated. Maybe he didn't stop being a vigilante after the events of New York, after the squid fell on the city and killed 3 million people. Maybe he didn't leave. Maybe he kept doing it. Maybe that's where they separated. She went into law enforcement. He still wanted to be a vigilante, thinking he can still do good. And she makes a reference to that somewhat in this very long-winded, hour-long joke, talking about 3 heroes dying and going to the pearly gates and meeting God. One of them was Night Owl, who had never killed anyone, but God sent him to hell regardless, simply because he had, in fact, been too soft. And the other 2, of course, were Smartest Man Alive, Ozymandias, Adrian Veidt, and, of course, Dr. Manhattan, who was a god himself. And she just kind of talks about everything in a way that's, again, very cynical, very bitter from what happened in the past. But it was just compelling the way Jean Smart acted. I really enjoyed it. I thought, like, she was just telling, I really wanted her to talk more, to kind of tell these old stories from that cynical mindset for some reason. I just really found her performance to be captivating, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was an Emmy on the horizon. And I know that might be a bit far-fetched to say, but she's that good, and she's that good in it, and I just want more. So she's trying to talk to Dr. Manhattan, a man she clearly still has some feelings for. We all know they were together for quite some time, and she calls him because they have these phone booths where people can call Dr. Manhattan on Mars. And she's like, I don't even know why I do this. I don't even know if you're listening, but it's one of the only things in her life, I think, that potentially gives her any comfort. Someone to talk to who understands what she's going through, what she's been through, what she's done. And I really find that angle to be super fascinating. So of course, her and I think his name is Petey, Agent Petey, kind of a younger greenhorn agent. They head out to Tulsa, and they go to the funeral for Judd. And that's when a cavalry member had drilled his way from outside of the cemetery into a mausoleum, had a suicide vest on, and went to go capture the King Jr., to which case Laurie shoots him in the head. And he goes, but he told her first, he's like, hey, listen, I've got a bomb, and it's strapped, it's connected to my heartbeat. And she called his bluff, and thankfully Angela was there to drag his body, dump him in the open grave that they hadn't pushed the casket in yet, and then push the casket of Judd on top of him in order to contain the explosion, because it was big. And then it was literally raining men. So, and then of course, right before then too, Laurie very much makes sure that Angela is aware that she knows who she is. That she knows that she's Sister Night, that she knows that she's still a cop. That she's not really messing around. She doesn't care. Angela's trying to protect her family, doesn't want anyone be aware of that. Laurie doesn't care. Again, what I like about the world building is that this situation is entirely isolated to Tulsa. And so that makes it far more fascinating from just like a sociological perspective of how the rest of the country or world would handle and look at a situation like this. Now, what I also enjoyed was when she tracked down the secret Tulsa police interrogation bay, where they've got all of the Nixonites or whatever they were called from the last episode. And she goes and talks to Looking Glass, and he's all trying to play it all cool, like, I'm not going to tell you who I am. And then she's like, listen, Wade, I know who you are. And then he's like, all right, well, the mask comes off and they talk. Because every time Tim Blake Nelson is on screen, I'm also very happy, because I love him as an actor, and I love the character of Looking Glass, because I feel like there's so much to him that is just unknown, and I want to know a lot more. And we're getting it piece by piece. And it's like, we're 3 episodes in, there's 6 episodes to go. If this is the only thing that we get, damn it, give us more Tim Blake Nelson, because I always feel he gets a little bit on the screwed over side as time goes on. Again, so there was a conversation in the mausoleum where Laurie goes over to talk to Angela. And Angela, at this point, Angela's not even like fronting. She's like, she's got her little detective goggles on, and she was going to see where this tunnel went to. And Laurie wants to get information, but they talk about Judd. They talk about the chief and the Ku Klux and the secret compartment that he had. And she mentions her father briefly. She's like, oh, my father had a secret compartment. And I found that too, And so clearly, she's like, every guy like this has a secret compartment. They always think they're the good guys, but usually they're the bad guys. But what we find out is that the Ku Klux Klan robe isn't there anymore. When she opened it up, it was gone. All it was there was just a mannequin bust. So someone took the robes. Someone took it. Now, obviously, it's Angela. I mean, I don't think anyone at this point is even questioning that. especially if you've seen the season or the episode 4 preview. She has the robe, so we know she took it. But why? That's what I want to know. It's like, I know she loved Judd, and I know she's trying to figure this thing out. I get all that, but I still find it to be very fascinating that she is in a position where this is like pretty, looking pretty bad. And she is at this point covering up evidence or not reporting it. There's no one in control of the police from what I can gather at this point. And it kind of feels like everything is going to pop off, right? The police are going to apply enough pressure on residents in the area, trying to find out who are the known associates of the 7K. And at that point, it's just going to go crazy, and all out war is going to take place on the streets of Tulsa, Oklahoma, very much like the riots back in 1921. And again, I think the juxtaposition from that, how the first episode started with that, is going to very much be where the last episode goes. And I do think that is that shot that we saw in the trailer where there were all the dead bodies on like what seemed like the center of Main Street. So I think that's going to be what happens with that. Either way, it was a bit of a slower episode. We know that Laurie's broken. She sleeps with the other FBI agent at the end, but it's weird because she pulled out a case. And it looked like it was like a big blue dildo, and it's got like attachable balls, which was just weird. So I don't get that. Oh yeah. Then of course there's the Adrian Veidt situation. Whatever's going on with his storyline is crazy. So last week, he put on a play, The Watchmaker's Son, which was all about the creation of Dr. Manhattan, leading to the burning death of one of his clone children, or whatever those things are. Then this time around, he tans a hide, creates a suit, and tells the other clone dude that, like, this guy's going to go somewhere. And then we don't see what happens. We just see that guy come back, and he's entirely frozen. He was in space. The suit didn't protect him. And so Veidt goes and shoots a buffalo from a neighboring property. And the game master, the game warden, then sends him this very mean-spirited letter saying, like, look, we agreed to certain things when you came here for your captivity. Don't mess around with that. So, of course, now it opens up the question, why is Veidt in captivity? Because they talked about Ozymandias and that he's dead earlier in the episode. So clearly people think that he's dead. But Agent PD believes, because according to one of his friends who works in another branch, I think down in Venezuela, that they said that Adrian Veidt got a reconstructive surgery and is now just living incognito. No, he's doing something, and I think he's creating a portal. Although in the next episode preview for that, they showed us a little bit involving like what appears to be maybe a catapult, and he's trying to catapult himself to space, or catapult his people to space, to see if he can survive in space to get to Mars. Because I kind of feel like he's trying to reach out to Dr. Manhattan. But at the end of the episode, as Laurie says, why am I even talking to you? What does it even matter anymore? You're not even listening. As she walks out, Angela's car falls right in front of her and smacks down right in front of her. And she just laughs because you don't know, was this Dr. Manhattan that was responding, that he was paying attention, that he heard Laurie's cries or heard her calls, and he is responding, or is this just coincidence from the fact that Will is still out there somewhere and someone decided to drop off Angela's car? Who knows? There's more mystery from this episode than there are answers, but again, it's really building up to something. I find it to be very fascinating with how they decided to work on things. We're getting a bit more of the world. We're seeing a bit more of its politics. We're getting a bit more about the characters. Not a lot. It's a bit of a slow burn. But as always, the music is fantastic. Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor are just nailing it on the score. I really can't wait to own the soundtrack to this. And I'm looking forward to next week. This is the show. If you are not watching the show, you should be watching the show. Anyway, your thoughts, your opinions, let me know down below. I will talk to you all later. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a fantastic day, and peace out. This video is supported by patrons like you. If you'd like to become a patron, please head over to patreon.com/Matt Jarbo.